Glad to see you. Glad to hear. I see familiar faces in here. I'm going to. I'm a kanien'kehá, which is the Mohawk mothers. You've heard a little bit about us, but I'm not up here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about Karoniaktajeh, a great man, visionary, and did a lot for young people when I was young. I used to go visit him in his little house, and he always had a wonderful garden there. And we would go there, we would sit around with him, and he'd be cooking, or he'd be doing a painting, and then he'd be telling us these fantastic stories. And it got us, we were young, and it got us interested in our own history and wanting to find out more and more about it. So as time went on, and he was always writing, and he used to put out a newspaper called the Longhouse News. I think it was him that did it, but at least, anyway, it was a great paper, full of fun and funny stories and interesting stories and serious stories. And it really got us interested in ourselves and our people, because we'd been told to forget it, because we were all going to die anyway. There were going to be no more Ogwehumwe, and that'll be the end of us. And I remember being told that at school, first day of school. They said that it's really sad, but there are going to be no more Indians. And they gave us a book, and it was called The Vanishing American, and there was a picture of an Ogwehumwe, and anyway, it was just telling the story of how we were going to die out. So I took that, and they gave us a copy of the book and told our parents to read it to us. And,
oh my gosh.
And I took it home, and my father took it and smashed it up against the wall, and he says it's a lie. So that's my my education started at that time. And I said, well, why do I have to go to school? He said, well, he says, if you don't go to school, I'll go to jail. So you have to go. So that's how I ended up in school, at the Indian Day School in Kahnawake. But the real education I got was just going around and visiting with Karoniaktajeh, and fascinating comprehension of our history, and also the perceptions that he had and what really happened, and then the paintings that he did to depict these. And I remember him telling me, he said, he says, it'd be good if you have ideas, it would be good if you wrote them. So I started to write stories and started to write letters. He says, start by writing letters to the editor. So I did, and they were published sometimes. And what was funny was it was signed the Kahentinetha horn. And nobody knew that it was a young girl writing these. And when they found that out, they didn't publish any more of my stories or any of my articles. So it was a hard time to be a woman, to be a young girl. And anyway, as time went on, he was the one that was basically helped me to see things into the future, and where my strength came from. And he would explain it. Explain what the role of the woman was and what we're supposed to do in the world, in life, and so on. And it was very, very helpful. It was great. And also he was very interested in exercising and developing our bodies. He did do it, and he had a little gym out in the back of his little house, and young guys would go there and they'd lift weights and things like that. And that's, he was so, he loved the young children, the young people so much. And so that's what he did. He just tried to find ways to help us. And I was very grateful for his influence on me. And I have to say that I think in a lot of ways he was my mentor. And he encouraged me, and it was a hard time, very, very hard time for us when I was young. Things were getting worse and worse for the indigenous people. So we had to start figuring out how we're going to start defending ourselves. And he always said, always remember, he said, you don't fight till you die. He says, you got to fight till you win. So I always remembered that. I said, hey, that's great. He had a lot of those kind of things that he said. And then we, around the end of around 1990s, he was very anxious to put out something called, was the Kaianere'kó in Mohawk and English. And then we made a film of it. It was about 6 or 7 hours long. And it's on it's on the Mohawk Nation News site on the home page, and you can look at it and you can see what Karoniaktajeh looks like, and you can see his character, and also my aunt, who was doing the speaking in Mohawk, and I did the English, and he also spoke and explained the Great Law in Mohawk. And I think that it's been on the site for about 30 years. Well, around the time that he died. He died in 1993. And he was very anxious to get that finished. So he got after us and got after us. So we did finally finish it. And it's still there. And you can still see him if you want to. I think it's a good idea. You'll see by looking at him that he's very determined. He was always so determined. He never backed down on anything. And if we had any problem, like myself, I wanted an explanation of something, I could always go and see him, and he'd sit me down and he'd start telling me and give me a big long explanation. And often it would be long, and he just he knew I appreciated it, and I would listen to him. And but I think that he made such an impression on me, and that I carried on. I tried to carry on what he was trying to do. And I think that when I was doing all my things that I used to do, I was fighting for our people and being a rabble-rouser. He was the guy I'd go to. I said, well, what do I do now? He says, never stop, just keep going. And so I just kept on going. And there were many times where I didn't know where to go next, and then he would say, well, don't back down, you're not supposed to. And so I didn't. And I think that to this day, some of the things he taught me are still in there. And he never, and he did that for anybody that came to see him. I know other young people that spent a lot of time with him. And there were a lot of things that I never even knew about, the problems we had with the non-native people, and how we had to understand it a little bit better, because these people are very different from us. They don't understand us, and so they're afraid of us. And anyway, I could see that, I understood that. And then he was very well read, by the way, super. I think he read all of those books by I forget which order that put out all the books. And he read all of them. He knew them all. He could recite things out of it for you if you needed that. But he was very, very intelligent, I'll tell you. And he went through a hard time because when he was young, they saw that he was very intelligent, so they wanted him to become a priest. And of course, that's not what he wanted to become. And then they started mistreating him, and eventually he turned it around. And the great thing about him was he had a really tremendous sense of humor. And he used to write paint these pictures. They were kind of like cartoons, but they were pretty brilliant. And I think you'll see them in the book. And that shows that he knew how to get his message across, and you had to do it in a certain way. And he told me that humor is better than yelling and screaming, but I did both. I got into a lot of trouble over it. But he always praised me no matter what happened to me. Whatever I did wrong, sometimes I did things wrong, he just praised me and kept me going. And then I was involved with the Red Power movement, American Indian movement. As a matter of fact, the American Indian movement respected him so much that they asked him to do the painting of their logo that he designed for them. So he was known everywhere. And he used to write letters to guys that were in jail, native people or even non-native people who got into all kinds of trouble. And he would write to them. And I remember going to the post office, getting his mail for him, and then he would sit there and write back to them. By hand, by the way. And anyway, so he saw a lot more of what was ahead for us than we did. But now we're at the point where we have seen it, and we've experienced very hard times, and we've got through it. And we're still going to get through everything. Right now we are going through a hard time. There's a lot of things happening, especially the terrible things regarding the unmarked graves and what has happened to our families and so on. And if we didn't have that courage that he put into us and trained us to have, I think probably it would have, in my case anyway, it would have been devastating, and it has been devastating for us. But we have that courage that we learned from the time we were very, very young. And he knew that, he knew how it worked, and he promoted that among our people. He knew that we had it in us, we had it in our minds, that we could use all of that so that we could not only protect ourselves, but protect our families. And we also knew what happened to our families, you've heard these stories, they're pretty awful stories, but he knew about that, and our elders did know about it, and they talked about it. But nobody ever believed that this horror could ever really happen. But he knew about it, and I guess we thought nobody would probably find out, nobody would be interested. But it turns around, now it looks like a lot of people are interested in what happened. And we're grateful that many of you have helped us. You've helped us very, very much. In our case, we have gone to court, and we are fighting McGill and the Royal Victoria Hospital, the Allen Memorial Hospital, the City of Montreal, and then who's joined on? The Attorney General of Quebec, and also the Attorney General of Canada, and so these people have, ganged up against us, and we are not using the court, a lawyer. We're doing it ourselves. As you know, we won the case, but it wasn't in the papers, but not in the mainstream anyway. But we said, look, we can't take lawyers. We have to do it ourselves, and we get our instructions from the Kaianere'kó, the Great Peace. That's where it comes from. Yeah. And we are the Gautnistosra, and we have duties and responsibilities. And he very much respected the role of the women, and always encouraged us to, speak out and to persevere and so on. So I miss him. I really do miss him a lot. I knew him till the time he went, because we all spent time with him. So I just hope that you do get some of the essence of this very great man, really, a visionary, a wonderful man. And I hope you do learn something yourself from some of the things he said, and all of the people that he helped and worked with. These young men here, they were very young at the time, but they learned from him. And so we have these people that have gotten together, and we've all written what we learned and what he meant to us. And I put something in there. I was one of the editors in it, and I tried my best to help get this book out. We all did. We're all been trying for a long time. So now it's out. So tell your friends about it. I think they'll get something out of it. Tokiningo. Now.